I want to talk about the book of Enoch for just a minute in your book, but I also want to get to UFOs.
Yeah.
Nephilim of the modern day, because if UFOs are extraterrestrial, that's what they're trying to sell. But if they're extra dimensional, if they're actually demons, if they're actually, kind of a revisiting of the Nephilim. But in the book of Enoch here, so you wrote this along with Timothy Alberino, but you do a very good job of explaining the book of Enoch, kind of what it is and where it came from. So Enoch, talk about Enoch in Ethiopia, how Ethiopia connects to the book of Enoch.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is the only, is some of the earliest copies, if you will. It's canonized in the book of the Ethiopian Bible. So this is the difference, right? You have, their Bible has Enoch as canon. Quickly in history, what ended up happening was they were putting the Bible together, having councils. Not Nicaea, that's it's a wrong thing. Nicaea wasn't where they necessarily put the Bible together as we know it. But the 66 books as we know it is actually different than the Catholic Bible, for example,
right,
and different from the Ethiopian Bible. When they were putting the Bible together, they believed that the Enoch was actually lifting from 1 Peter and Jude, right? They're saying, okay, this is contemporary because it's directly quoting these two books of the New Testament that are considered canon. This was all kind of blown away when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in Qumran. In Qumran, they found copies of the Enoch which predate Christ. So the Essenes in Qumran were scribes. They were also, they were waiting for the end of the world. They were that type of culture, but they were writing all these things down. So the second most copied book, or they found in Qumran, was the book of Enoch. So that means that actually it's quite the opposite. That both Jude, the writer of Jude, and 1 Peter were quoting directly from the book of Enoch, which doesn't mean it's canon. It just means that it was read by the writers of the New Testament, and more than likely read before that by we don't know how far back that goes, but the earliest, if you will, provenance for documents puts the date before Christ, which means that this was at least held in high regard by Second Temple writers. Yeah. I mean, they had read it. So take what you want with that. It doesn't need to be canon, but it was important enough that two writers, at the very least, of the New Testament quoted directly. So the Ethiopians have held it. They were kind of the keepers of Enoch, if you will, because they have it in the Bible, in their Bible. But that's where it initially comes from, sort of in the New World before we get to the 1920s, when we have the discovery of Qumran, is that there's some explorers that went down there and they brought it back and translated it in the 19th century. And that was when it started to circulate again. But of course, it was considered taboo because it had always been put to the outside because of the way they believed it was written after the fact.
Well, it's also 3 books and at different times. So most people think that the most credible part about it is the first book, the Book of the Watchers, which outlines a lot of things that give you context to things found in the Bible. And one of the things we talk about a lot is that, like, for instance, let's take the topic of angels. Biblical writers had like prerequisite knowledge of what those were, where they came, and who they were, who told them about the angels. And so the Bible doesn't give you the book about the angels. We don't get anything like that. But we're just sort of left to assume like the writers knew what they were. Either they had oral traditions that they passed down, they knew what these things were. And so when it comes to giants and Nephilim, same thing happened, So as modern day Christians, there's so many mentions of the angels. We don't have a problem adding that into the story. But Christians debate, what is an angel? What can it do? Where does it come from? Yeah. We know they're there. They show up on the scene so many times, but the writers aren't like, oh, by the way.
Well, in Genesis 6 is 4 verses, Jimmy, right? So the sort of what's implicit there is that everyone understands this story. And it's missing for us, right? It's 21st century America. We don't, so there's 4 verses. There's Nephilim in the land they were then and thereafter. And then Moses is described, the writer of Genesis, moves on. It's like, well, you guys know the story. It's kind of like if we describe something in modern day, right?
That's exactly. I was reading Genesis 6 one day, and I was reading a commentary with it, and what the commentary said is the reason that Moses didn't make any, when he says, these were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. Okay.
Yeah.
And it says the reason that there was no comment was because Moses just assumed everybody knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And now we fast forward to 2025, they don't, because it has been expunged from much of modern literature.
Yeah.
And see, Noah was the great-grandson of Enoch. Yeah. And they lived in that world of the giants.
Yeah.
That was their world. Yeah. And so when Enoch is writing about Enoch has two very important perspectives. He lived for hundreds of years before the flood in the times of the giants, and he was best friends with God. And so the book of Enoch, it says that. It talks about the entire interaction between Enoch and God and Enoch and the fallen angels and what was happening in the world. And through Noah, it would have been very easy for Enoch to communicate all of that and for it to get on the other side. But when you omit the book of Enoch, you don't hear that. It's erased.
Yeah, you lose a big chunk of context.
Well, that's what Michael Kaiser always said to us, Jimmy, is that one thing that's always stuck with me is he said the Bible was written for us, but not to us, right? It's written by an ancient Near Eastern author and under the inspiration of God to an ancient Near Eastern audience. And as you're saying, they would have had this story, they would have known it. It's like if we drop things like we were talking about the Super Bowl, for example, and then someone finds it 2,000 years from now. We don't have to explain what that is. Anybody around who's a Western understands what the Super Bowl is for an example. And we don't need to say, oh, it's this game that's played between there's two conferences and there's 16 teams and then they play this playoffs and they all play each other. And what's football? But all this stuff is sort of inherent requisite knowledge for culturally. And I think it's the same thing here. That's why I think Enoch is important, is that, we don't have to elevate it to canon, but what it does is it provides a ton of color to what's happening here. And in our book, just so we can say this, we have first, second, and third Enoch, and second and third are Jewish mysticism. We put it in there because economic reasons you want to get all three. We don't ascribe to those. As Nate said, there's about 3 parts to first Enoch, and the important part, really, oldest part, is the Book of the Watchers. Then you have the parables and the luminaries, which are talking about certain aspects of Enoch's experience in the heavens, etc. But really, the Book of the Watchers is the story, the expose on Genesis 6, and that is is the oldest portion and also the most relevant to our conversations around Genesis.
Yeah, because you wouldn't really get any other. There's nothing else that can really give you an explanation of what the Nephilim are, where they come from, even why demons are here, where they come from.
That's right. Well, in your book, is page 5 of your introduction. You did a great job of going through first, second, and third Enoch. Now, for many years, I have believed that first Enoch is special. It's not canon, but I believe it is historically accurate. When you look at Enoch, it is consistent with reality. It's consistent with everything else that happened after the giants came. Second and third Enoch, not so much. But you guys say that in your book. You're not trying to sell second and third Enoch. But it's really well done as it relates to explaining that. You also, and I turned there just a minute ago because I highlighted it, you talk about the early church fathers who very strongly believed in the book of Enoch as being an inspired source. And that's very important. You have it right here. Clement, Barnabas, Irenaeus, Origen, Tertullian, it's Athenagoras of Athens, Justin Martyr, all of those believed that Enoch was an inspired book.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, obviously with the church fathers, that doesn't come without, a little bit of weight, right? That obviously aren't
right.
canon per se, although they did work on creating the canon. But
yeah.
I think those endorsements go a long way. And I just think, listen, you hear a lot of preachers and pastors, TikTok, Instagram, these influencer people that are so-called experts that basically just say, don't read this. It's forbidden. Don't read this. It's trash. Don't read this. And I always find that really interesting. Like, there are so many other books also quoted in the Bible. Some we've lost to antiquity, but there's some that exist that the writers of the biblical narrative, they were all very well read.
That's right.
And when Paul's quoting things and when some of the early writers are quoting things, it's because it was something that not only was culturally relevant, but it was important enough to the story to reference. And even we can see that in New Testament, right? Back to Jude and Peter. It was important enough for them to reference that because it provided this worldview that helped to understand, in this case, the days when Christ was dead and he's preaching to the angels in Tartarus, is what First Peter talks about.
Right.
And these were all things that they would have understood, and then they've been like, okay, yeah, I've read that, right? These are things that were most likely also read in temple.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize is that if you just lived then, you knew all the things like the Super Bowl, what a text message is, what an email is, all these things that we know as modern people. We don't waste any time explaining what these things are. We just know. And I think the ancients had the same way. They had a prerequisite knowledge, they had an understanding, a theological framework, and then they wrote the Bible through, and the books of Bible through that. And there was just like oral traditions, passed down things, and maybe some stuff that was told to them directly from God that, like we see it all throughout Scripture, like Moses gets communicated to. He's friends with God as well, and they're having conversations. I mean, it says that, that like he was talking to God like a friend. So it's interesting, and I think for our show is that we didn't just stay there. We've had a lot of people email us things, and they're like, I'm not going to come on your show, but, when I was a kid, we had the universities come to our house because we were digging out a basement and we came across these giant skeletons, things like that.
Wow.
Where we've tried to push the boundaries and to say, you can trust the Book of Enoch, or at least parts of the Book of Enoch, because people found this stuff forever. And
absolutely.
And there's so much alternate history, places like Catalina Island, Sardinia, or, just all over the world where there's these anomalies, there's these remnants of the giants, these giant tombs, these local legends of this. There used to be these, large people that lived here. And so,
or new ones like Afghanistan, right? There's a bunch of our deployed U.S. troops came back and saying the locals talk about these stories. And some folks, even the ones we've had on the show, have their own encounters with giants in these the hinterlands of Afghanistan, which is just these wild, untouched, unpopulated places, which are like extremely difficult to get to, and amazingly and exceedingly isolated.
Well, it's crazy, Jimmy, because yesterday I'm at an Easter barbecue, and he's like, one of the guys there was like, hey, I'm a fan of your show. I know what you guys talk about. He's like, a brother-in-law, someone close to me, was there in Afghanistan, was a part of that raid in the cave when they saw that giant. I'm trying to get him to come on your show. So that's the kind of stuff that happens to us, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But we get those things sent to us now that we are sort of in this space. And I think the cool part about the paranormal part of our podcast, the blurry creatures, the branding that we've done, is that we try to talk about a specific creature, whether it's like, a Wendigo creature, or it's Bigfoot, or it's, a gray alien, or whatever it is. Yeah. Or a giant, ancient giant, or even an angel is considered a blurry creature. I mean, most of the time that's what they are. We don't know what they are. And so that's really the cool part of the show, is that it doesn't just stay with like, arguing about like sort of this history that's been kind of swept under the rug. We try to pull out the literal bones and say, look, we did a whole episode on Glen Rose, Texas, which was really interesting. You have these giant footprints,
absolutely,
in with dinosaurs, actually, like concreted into the soil, and you go there and you
fossilized. I like concrete in the soil.
Well, you know what I'm saying, like fossilized in the soil, but it's like just like concrete. They're there and they're massive, and along with dinosaurs. But in the 80s, what did they do? They chipped out the human footprints.
Yep.
And they just left the dinosaur.
Humanoid, right? These
humanoid, yeah. But they're massive, and people will send us pictures. Like this one lady sent us this. She was buying rock out of a quarry, and there's this massive footprint in this, piece of stone. And we were trying to get it from her. Like, please send it to us. We're going to put that in our studio. But it's this huge 18-inch track, right? That's just clear as day, like someone walking through the mud. And we post that stuff all the time. And there's footprints in, fossilized all over the world giant tracks. So we look at this from like 50 different angles. It's not, the Book of Enoch is just one part of proving that this whole history of giants was a thing. And there's got to be an origin story for the giants.
Yeah.
There's got to be an origin story for a lot of the things. And that's the hard part about modern day Christians, is they don't have an origin story for demons. They don't have an origin story for angels. We just kind of loosely get our human origin story, which is still hotly debated, of like, okay, what was was Garden of Eden? Was it an actual place? Was it, is this just a mythological way of explaining human origins? Is there actually a garden? And that's the hard part of modern day Christians trying to explore these topics, is we don't have a lot of cohesive consensus on a lot of things.
Basic theologies to start. Yeah.
Well, I think the reason the church has lost its relevance is because we're not talking about what people are talking about.
Yeah.
We're not answering the questions that are on their minds, and this is not a normal day and time.
Whoa, 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 oh, oh. I was chasing distant skylines, running far from where you stood, thinking if I had it all then maybe life would feel like it should. Every road kept pulling forward, every dream was somewhere new, but I never saw the pieces were all leading back to you. I tried to hold the whole wide world, every star, every view, but every piece I ever found was just another part of you. Every step, every mile, every dream I thought I knew led me back to where you are. My whole world was you. All the things I thought I needed started fading one by one, when I saw that all my reasons ended where we'd begun. I tried to hold the whole wide world, every star, every view, but every piece I ever found was just another part of you. Every step, every mile, every dream I thought I knew led me back to where you are. My whole world was you. If I had just turned around sooner, I would have seen it clear. Everything I ever searched for was already right here. I don't need the whole wide world, I don't need a sky so blue. Every piece of life I want is already in you. Every road now feels like home, every dream has come in view. I was lost until I found my home.